The Mother's Promise Part 2. The night Ada walked away from the streets, she did not look back. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, she chose uncertainty over the life she knew. She found a small, cramped room in a quiet part of the city, far from the noise, far from the memories that clung to every corner she used to stand on. The rent was cheap, the space barely enough, but it was hers. More importantly, it was safe. The early months of her pregnancy were not easy. Without a steady source of income, Ada struggled. Some days, she ate only once. Other days, not at all. The sickness came and went, leaving her weak and exhausted. There were moments she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the wall, wondering if she had made the right choice. But each time doubt crept in, she would place her hand on her stomach, and she would remember why she left. Slowly, she began to look for something, anything, that could give her a new start. She tried small jobs, washing clothes for neighbors, helping to clean shops, running errands. The money was little, but it was honest. One afternoon, while helping an elderly woman mend a torn wrapper, Ada watched closely as the woman worked with needle and thread. The careful movements, the patience, the quiet focus, it stirred something inside her. "You're interested?" the woman asked, noticing her gaze. Ada hesitated, then nodded. "I want to learn." That was how it began. Every day after her small jobs, Ada returned to the woman, Mama Bisi, as everyone called her. She started with the basics: how to hold a needle properly, how to measure fabric, how to make simple stitches. At first, her hands were clumsy. She pricked her fingers often, and her lines were uneven. But Ada did not give up. She practiced late into the night, even when her body ached, even when her eyes struggled to stay open. She was determined, more determined than she had ever been in her life. Months passed, and her belly grew. So did her skill. By the time her pregnancy reached its final weeks, Ada could sew simple dresses and repair clothes neatly. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give her hope that she could build something better. Then, one quiet night, the pain began. At first, it was just a dull ache, but soon, it grew sharper, stronger, impossible to ignore. Ada gripped the edge of her bed, her breath coming in short bursts as fear crept into her chest. She was alone, but she had no choice. With trembling steps, she made her way to the same clinic she had visited months ago. The journey felt endless, each step heavier than the last. By the time she arrived, she could barely stand. Hours later, after waves of pain that felt like they would break her, a cry filled the room. A small, fragile cry. Ada's heart stopped. Then, it swelled. The nurse gently placed the baby in her arms, a tiny girl, wrapped in a soft cloth. Her eyes closed, her face peaceful. Ada stared at her, tears streaming down her face. "My daughter," she whispered. In that moment, every struggle, every pain, every sacrifice, it all became worth it. "Leona," Ada said softly. "Your name is Leona." She held her close, feeling the warmth of her small body, the steady rhythm of her breathing. It was real. She was real. And she was hers. From that day on, Ada made a promise, not just in words, but in her heart. She would never go back to the streets. No matter how hard life became, she would find a way. The days that followed were filled with both joy and hardship. Caring for a newborn was not easy, especially with so little. There were nights Leona cried endlessly, and Ada, exhausted, could barely keep her eyes open. There were days when money was so scarce that Ada worried how she would feed them both. But she endured. With Leona tied gently to her back, Ada returned to Mama Bisi's shop as soon as she could. She continued learning, sewing whenever she had the chance. Customers began to notice her work, simple but neat and strong. Little by little, she started earning. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep them going. As Leona grew, Ada's determination only deepened. She saved every small amount she could, cutting down on anything unnecessary. When Leona was old enough, Ada enrolled her in a small school nearby. The day she watched her daughter walk into that classroom for the first time, wearing a simple but clean uniform she had sewn herself, Ada felt something she had never felt before. Pride. A quiet, powerful pride. At home, she taught Leona what she was learning: how to hold a needle, how to be patient, how to stay focused. But more than that, she taught her something even more important. Always stand on your own, she would say, no matter what happens. Leona would nod, her bright eyes full of curiosity and trust. In those moments, Ada saw the future she had once believed was impossible. A better life. Not just for her, but for her daughter. And as she watched Leona grow, laugh, and learn, Ada knew one thing for certain. The promise she made that night was no longer just a hope. It was becoming a reality.